right at the half hour. Great. All right. So my name is Teresa Foltin, and I am here talking about one of my favorite topics. You are teaching how many children? So the reason why this is my favorite topic is because I am the mother of 5. Now, some of you may have more than that. Some of you may have less. I find it funny because when I had my 3rd child, an acquaintance of mine said, "Ma, you have a large family." And I was thinking, seems pretty small to me. But I'm sure that if you're here listening to this, either you plan on having a larger family or you already do. So you already know the questions and statements that we get out in public, which amaze me that people talk like that. But I find it fun to have a large family. I really enjoy having a lot of kids, and I wish I could have more. So if you all have babies, sign me up for babysitting, because I'd love to take care of them. All right, so a little bit about that background of 5 kids. At the height, or at least the beginning of the height of the most intense teaching time, my children were 6, 8, 12, 14, and 15. There's exactly 3 years between the first child and the 3rd child, with 1 snuck in between. And now my oldest is 23 and my youngest is 14. So I'm well out of that most intense time period, but I just wanted you to know, what it looked like when I was in that most intense. We also dealt with learning disabilities, so dyslexia, auditory processing issues, ADHD. And then when my youngest was 9, I was diagnosed with stage 4 metastatic breast cancer. So and the only reason why I'm giving you that background is so that you realize that, yeah, we were in the trenches, right? The trenches with young kids, the trenches with, just health issues and whatnot. So what I'm going to talk about really did work for me, and I hope that you'll be able to benefit from it. My style is eclectic. I am not a buy a boxed curriculum kind of person. I like to design my own curriculum, and I pull from classical, Charlotte Mason, and Montessori resources to build that curriculum. So I'll talk a little bit briefly about that as well. All righty. So the topics that we're going to cover today are just general ideas of working with a large family, homeschool specific ideas, and then RightStart math with multiple children. So we all know that schedules are really important. Life and school does benefit from having a schedule of some sort. My schedule changes when I see the need, and yours will too. There's lots of resources out there for how to schedule your day and whatnot, so I'm not going to get too much into detail on that, but I will make some suggestions. Being willing to roll some things from one day to the next, or from one week to the next as you see the need, is perfectly acceptable. And you shouldn't feel any shame or anything like that, guilt about just pushing something off to another day, because honestly, we can't always get it done just because life happens, right? So despite the fact that we have farm animals and all the chores that go along with those, we are not a wake up at 5 a.m. kind of people. And that's great if you are. You're going to get a whole lot more done in a day than I will. But the reason why I'm telling you this is, if you're not a wake up at 5 a.m. in the morning person, don't despair. There is plenty that you can get done. I typically am up by 7. My kids roll out of bed between 7 and 8. And school usually starts around 9 and goes to 12 for sure. And then depending on the time period and the season in my life, if I had lots of little kids doing a lot of varieties of subjects, I would continue after lunch, right? So for 1, 2, or 3 hours at the most. The schedule for me and my house, we will bump a schedule to later in the afternoon if it's a great morning to go sledding or to take a nice walk, right? So I didn't always stick with it, but in general, we tried to go from 9 to 12 and then a few hours in the afternoon. All right. Outdoor time is particularly helpful, especially when you feel like screaming. Not that ever happened in my house. Or, taking a walk along the river so that your kids will throw rocks into the water instead of at each other is also very helpful. So I can't underestimate how important it is to get out in nature. It makes everybody feel energized and alive and not cooped up and less likely to hurt each other. I had 4 boys, so 4 of those 5 were boys. So this is why I'm talking like this. Maybe those of you who have boys understand. All right. You all know this, but social media really steals time from more important interactions, especially with our kids. And even outside activities like extracurricular activities, dance, music lessons, sports, 4-H, things like that. All my kids participated in those things. But there was a time period when I realized that it was much too much. And I was beginning to think that my calling was actually taxi driver rather than homeschooling mom. So just to keep that on your radar, that it is possible to have too much of a good thing, and to pare down and focus on really the most important stuff will help a lot. All right, depending on your season of life, you may want to have a scheduled quiet time. So for me, this was in the afternoon when I would fall asleep reading aloud to my kids anyway. So I kind of just gave in to that impulse and scheduled a quiet time. And many people suggest actually working with your older kids when your littles are taking a nap. And if that works for you, fantastic. More power to you. For me, I needed a nap probably more than my kids did. So I definitely took advantage of sleeping with the youngers. Now, the older kids, I did not make them take a nap. They had to be quiet and they had to stay put, whether it was in the family room or in their bedroom or whatnot. They could listen to an audiobook with headphones. They could listen to quiet music. They could work on brain teasers or puzzles. They could build Legos, things like that, things that were quiet and did not involve them talking to anyone. 9 times out of 10, they fell asleep too. So it was something that was needed for all of us. But those are just some suggestions. Okay. So the homeschool specific ideas. If you focus on teaching your children reading, math, and morals, they will be successful in life. Okay. They will have the reading ability to teach themselves anything. They will have the math ability to learn higher and higher math, right? And they'll know what to do with that information. That's where the morals come in. How do you live that happy life? Okay. Now, from that point, after you've covered those bases, you can sprinkle in the other subjects as they fit in. It isn't imperative to cover history and science and art and music and grammar and literature all in the same day. Those things can be sprinkled in throughout the week. So you don't have to feel like you have to get, 20 subjects done in one day. It's not possible, and it's probably not even the best way to teach. Now, when it comes to high school, I was a little bit more focused on, making sure that we hit all of those boxes. But it might be 3 hours of science on Monday, and 2 hours of science on Tuesday, or 2 hours of history on Tuesday, something like that. Didn't have to be all in the same day. It did help me to have an idea of where I was going with my homeschool. So I developed an overall plan, and this evolved over time, of what I wanted to cover between kindergarten and 12th grade. Okay, so then I filled in ideas as I came across resources or people recommended books and things like that. As I filled those in as I came across them, right? So this schedule that you see here, it just has kindergarten through 4th grade. This is certainly not a complete schedule, because I would have been filling in what are the read alouds I plan on doing, or what are the read alouds we did do, right? So that I could have a history and keep track of what we really enjoyed. But as you can see, in kindergarten, I only covered really 4 things. And then by 4th grade, we're doing 8 things or more, right? Moving on to the next page. 7th grade, I knew I wanted to deal with medieval times, right? So medieval history was going to be for 7th grade. But notice I don't have any books listed for it, right? So those came along as I came across the resources I wanted to use. In 10th grade, notice under history and literature, I left it blank. Obviously, mine is filled in with a bunch of stuff, lots of books. But I left it blank on purpose for you to see that You don't have to have everything planned out from kindergarten to 12th grade. That's not realistic, especially when you're starting with a kindergartner, right? But it means you have a spot to put ideas when you come across them. So I would suggest something along these lines that you can just in a notebook fill in later, or on your computer, fill in later ideas that you want to possibly cover. All right. Another idea is to combine as many subjects and children as possible, right? So read alouds can cover a multitude of subjects. They're great for covering history and geography and science. Fantastic. But some of the subjects that go together really well are art, music, and poetry. That's a good block. Grammar, spelling, and handwriting. You could do copy work and learn about grammar and spelling while they're practicing their handwriting. History, geography, and science. Also, many of these, if not most of them, can be covered across age groups, right? So if you have an 8-year-old and a 12-year-old, they can be studying the same things along with the 6-year-old and the 15-year-old. You know, there's no rule saying that they can't cover the same material. Just adjusting it, you know, for the older kids. Maybe they have to write an essay about it. These are some time savers that I found. Don't be afraid to use quality audiobooks and videos. This was especially crucial when I was going through chemotherapy. There were times when I couldn't even keep my eyes open for most of the day. So we relied a lot on audiobooks and videos. If you're struggling with a baby, remember that baby in the beginning I told you that I'd take care of? If you're struggling with your own baby interfering with school, get a sling. Put the baby in the sling, keeps them close to you, they're content, and you can get a ton done just by having that one tool. School boxes for the toddlers and preschoolers. That could be a different box every day of the week, so Monday through Friday. And you put in, you know, quiet toys, activities that they can be working on their own, and they don't see that box again for another 7 days. So it keeps everything fresh and exciting for them. So you can really utilize those 5 boxes for quite a long time before you have to switch out things. Some people, okay, so, also older children playing with the younger one for 15 minutes. It's a good skill for the older kids to have, obviously, and I would rotate through your older kids, not just the oldest one. But you know, that buys you 15 minutes. You can get a lot done in 15 minutes. Then the next question is who should you start with? So some people suggest the youngest child first, fill up their emotional tank and then set them loose. They'll be happy. Others suggest starting with the oldest one first, get all of the stuff that they need to do with you, you know, so maybe it is math, or maybe it's learning to read or writing an essay, those kinds of things. Start with the oldest one first, then they can go off and do their independent work while you do the next one. My tactic was to start with the most challenging child first, whether that was behaviorally or academically, right? So just think of those ideas and maybe try them out and see what works best for you. Okay. Now let's look at RightStart Math and mini children. I am sure you've heard some people say that they couldn't do RightStart because it was so teacher intensive. Well, my first reaction to that is I want to be the teacher of my children. So I want to spend time with them, and I sure as heck want to make sure that they have a solid foundation in both reading and math. So I think that the time that you devote to building your child's math skills will really reap time-saving benefits later on as they get older. So by the time they get to level F, they're spending a whole lot more independent time, and you are doing minimal lesson time. So I think if you build their skills so that they can work from there, you're really going to be ahead time-wise. Some people would suggest combining your kids at all possible and practical into the same level. So maybe you have a 6 and 8-year-old and the 8-year-old hasn't been doing math, right? So you would start off with, say, level B, and they would both be in that book. That's not a bad idea as long as you are keeping an eye out for unhealthy competition, right? You know what that looks like, especially if the younger student is more confident in math and the older one is struggling. that can really cause a lot of turmoil. So you might end up being in the same book, but maybe not being able to teach from the same book. And you might be able to start off combining and then realize later on that somebody's ready to move ahead, and that's fine too. Whether you combine or not, as you work with one student, the other kids can be doing independent work. They can be playing the math card games. They could be jumping on a mini trampoline in your living room for exercise. They could be washing dishes or cleaning off the kitchen ledge. You know, there's a lot of stuff that the kids can be doing independently while you're focused on teaching math. And then if you didn't make one of those preschooler boxes, school boxes for them, you know, worst case scenario, you dump all of the colored tiles out and you let your preschoolers sort by color, right? So there's a lot of stuff that you can do. Another idea is to layer your children in. What does that mean? That means start with the oldest, teach the lesson, and then assign the worksheet that they will do independently, or assign a game. Now, in that case, you might have to adapt it to be a solitaire game, but that's doable. Then the next child comes in. You teach the lesson, assign the worksheet, or the game. If they have a game, the oldest one who's now done with the worksheet can play the game with the next one, right? This continues until you get through your youngest child. So everybody just gets a lesson and then moves on to the game or the worksheet or both. Games. Games are really super important if you haven't figured that out yet. You may think that you don't have time to play the games, but really in the long run, the games are the time saver. And this is true because if your child plays the games, they will know their facts and they'll know them well. So that when you come up to a new lesson, when the facts are known, the new information is the new concepts are going to be easier to understand. They're going to come faster to your child. So that will make the lessons go faster. So in effect, the games do save you a lot of time. The other thing to realize is the games don't have to be played right after your lesson, right? They could be played after dinner or while dinner is cooking. They could be played with grandparents. You know, grandparents are coming over for dinner. Great. You cook the dinner and they play the games, right? Bring them to after school activities. Maybe your son has a karate lesson and your other kids don't. They could be playing math card games at that time, or to a doctor's appointment. Play dates. You have a babysitter. You're going out for dinner with your husband. You have a babysitter. Have the babysitters play the games. Anybody can do this. It doesn't have to always be you. While I know that it's really possible to get through 5 students or more with their math lessons every day, almost every day, I would say that there are definitely other ways to do this. It's not a race. You don't have to stress about getting through a level by a particular date, okay? Don't stress about that. Your children will do just fine if you go at the pace that works for your family. Okay. The next idea, so let me back up a sec. If lessons are going really well and your child is happily trucking along and things are going at a good pace, I would not interrupt that magic. Okay. However, if you see tears or frustration on the horizon, don't wait till they actually come. But if you can see that it's coming, it's building, the stress is building, or if you're really, really short on time, I would consider putting a time limit on your lessons, okay? So time limits on the lessons, as you can see on the slide, 10 minutes for level A, 15 minutes for level B, etc. That just means wherever you stop, you put a sticky note there, and that's where you'll pick up maybe later in the day after your doctor's appointment, or maybe, you know, the next day, because you didn't have more time that day, next day, pick it up. It's not a problem. I would still have them play the games, okay? And I would say that if they are, if this is something that you're having to do on a regular basis, because that's just what life is like for you, then you may also consider doing math over the summer, okay? But we'll talk about that in a second. All right, next idea, stagger your math lessons. So if maybe you have 4 kids that you'll do math with on Mondays and Wednesdays, and they play games on Tuesdays and Thursdays, right? your other 3 kids could be doing games on Mondays and Wednesdays and doing lessons on Tuesdays and Thursdays. So this works really well, but it's also one of those cases where you may consider math over the summer. And I know that probably sounds really un-American to do school over the summer, but don't balk at the idea. Think about the benefits of this. It reduces your time pressure. You may only need to do 2 lessons a week over the summer. That's pretty doable. Your kids will not forget their math facts. Remember what parents and schools are thinking about all the time over the summer is that summer slump, right? So they tell you to work on math and work on reading so that when they come back in the fall, they're not behind. It is a fact that kids will lose their skills over the summer if they're not worked on. So you could be keeping up with lessons over the summer, and that would mean they won't forget their facts. If that's the case, then they will not need to do the review lessons in the beginning of the next book, right? So that's a time saver as well. Even if your students did end the school year by finishing their math book, please play the games over the summer. That will also keep their facts really fresh and allow them to move into the next year very successfully. Okay. So that's it from my suggestions. I really thank you for joining me today to discuss you are teaching how many children, and I'm going to open it up to any questions if anybody would like to ask a question. Kathleen, can we open up their, allow them to talk?
Yes, all they have to do is just hit the unmute button.
Okay, perfect.
And carry on.
All righty. So, any questions? Or any specific situations that maybe you were concerned about that I didn't cover?
Hi, my name is Sarah. I had a question. Maybe you went over this right at the beginning, but I was wondering how you personally did lessons or how you scheduled things out over the years with your kids. Did you try to, was it your goal to teach each of your children a math lesson every single day, or did you end up doing the some kids this day, some kids the next day type of thing?
Right. Thanks for the question. Yeah, I did mainly do 1 lesson every day with every child. So at the height of my homeschooling, I was doing 5 lessons. Well, that's not entirely true. I was probably doing, at the height, I was probably doing 4 kids because the other child was more independent by that time. But that would be with my 6-year-old, my 8-year-old, my 12-year-old. Actually, the 14 and 15-year-olds were already out of RightStart at that point in time. If before the youngest was in, I was doing 3 kids at once. So that would be my oldest, 2 boys, and then my girl, and then I added in another boy. So I was probably doing 4 at the most. And I would get them done as much as possible every day, a lesson. But I also gave myself grace. You know, sometimes that looked like 4 days a week and not 5 days a week, right? Actually, most often it looked like 4 days a week and not 5. Sometimes it only looked like 3 days a week, but then the next week we would do 4. So, when I was going through chemo, though, we did do summer school because we were just that far behind. So we did do school over the summer, including the lessons. The rest of the time, we just played games over the summer. So if I had more than, I would say if I had more than 4 actively learning lessons at a time, I probably would just do 2 sessions a week, right? So one group does Mondays and Wednesdays, the other group does Tuesdays and Thursdays. That's probably how I would do it. Anybody else?
Hi, I actually have a question about
Okay.
the game. I have not been super successful in getting my kids to play games by themselves just because I feel like they need assistance. So like are you suggesting like games that they've played in the past, like reviews? And then I don't know, when have you found the time for that? Because a lot of times I just feel like sometimes those games I feel like they almost don't even need anymore because they've mastered the concept. But
Okay.
they need for the new games. So
Right. How many kids are you working with?
3 currently, and then I have a 4th one starting next year.
Okay. And so what will be the age span there?
So we're in RightStart F, D, and B right now. And then my oldest, she's 10, and then my youngest is 6. So
Okay.
he's gonna be
Okay.
10 soon. And then I have like a kindergartner starting next year.
Okay.
So,
Right. Okay. So what I would say is definitely I was involved in teaching the game. So the first time or two that they play, I definitely was involved in sitting there watching them play. Then I usually felt pretty comfortable with either modifying that into a solitaire game for the oldest one to do on his own, or having the next one, I would just teach both of them how to play the game, right? So even though the younger one didn't have to know how to play that game in particular, I would teach them how to play that game and provide them with the resources they needed. So say it was a fraction game and they hadn't done fractions yet, they would have the fraction chart available. So I would take the time to teach them that so that they'd have a buddy to play with. So you're right, like your 10-year-old does not need to play Go to the Dump, but it doesn't hurt for your 10-year-old to play Go to the Dump with a kindergartner while you're busy with somebody else, right? So there are games that they don't need anymore, that they have down pat and their facts are really good. It doesn't hurt to bring them about every once in a while just to keep those facts fresh. But yes, you're right. I did spend time to teach them that game before I set them loose on it. So
okay, a second, I thought you meant, did you say like by RightStart F, they're more independent? Because maybe I'm missing something. My RightStart F, she's the one who's like taking the most work. Like
okay. Can you identify why she's taking the most work? Like what's slowing her down?
Long division. We just finished that. But and I know their comment like it was, but it's just been harder. She's on level. I think math's been really easy for her. And we've used RightStart almost from the very beginning. But she's she's only on, I don't know, less than 54 this year. And like I'm not stressing. She seems she needs 2 years on this level, I'm okay with that. But
she's young.
I heard you say RightStart F's independent or more independent. I'm like, oh, that is not, maybe we're doing something wrong because she does not do well independently on it.
Okay. So she's also she's probably the right age for it. She's just younger than my kids were when they got to F, but because I have reasons that we started a little bit later, but
she's actually I think she's 1 year ahead by what they were. She flew by, and her brother is too, who's a first grader. We skipped level A and he's almost done with level B this year. He's just and I think it's really because of games, honestly. He's been playing all those games with his older sisters for years. Level B going by quickly for him. And that happened for her, but that's not the case. Maybe that's why she's frustrated with F, because it's not happening as fast as some of the earlier levels.
It is a shock to kids who are, fairly bright when they come up against something that's challenging. It shocks them and it frustrates them because they think that life should be easy because it has been so far. So that might be part of her problem. If it's just long division, I would just make sure that she's really quick on her multiplication facts and understands the relationship with multiplication and division. So maybe since things were going really easily, maybe she skipped some of those games and could use a review of them. I wouldn't, as the note says in the book, I wouldn't, get too hung up about the long division because That is what we have calculators for. But as long as she can do the short division and feels really comfortable doing that, I would be pretty content with that. What I meant by taking me less time is when I first started, it probably took me 30 to 40 minutes to get through a lesson in B, but that was because it was new to me and new to my kids. Whereas by the time I got to level F, it was only taking between 5 and 15 minutes to get through at teaching the lesson. Then of course they took longer to finish the worksheets, but my personal lesson time was less than it had been with the younger grades. So I guess it probably is just your, everybody's different. Your daughter is in that spot. She may find though that once you get past these few lessons, things pick up again, right? So
that might be the case. All right. Well,
because you'd probably be coming up on fractions pretty soon if you haven't already covered it. And she already has been exposed to fractions, so that'll feel a lot more comfortable to her.
Okay. All right.
Teresa, we have a question from Sarah. She says, do most kids need all 3 middle school years to get through levels G and H?
No, I don't think so. I mean, some may take it. And I like that fact about RightStart is that there's that wiggle room at the end before they start algebra. So you could start algebra in 8th grade, or you could wait and start algebra in 9th grade. So my kids did not take 3 years to do G and H. They got done most of them got done in a year or a little bit more. We often rolled over, like maybe we stopped in June and then picked up where we left off if we had to take the summer off for some reason. So we probably rolled a little bit over, but it did not take us a full 3 years for sure. 2 school years and maybe a month is what it took my kids. With the exception of my second oldest, he took a long time. And I finally just decided, okay, he needs to get on with algebra. And I was hesitant to start with algebra because he particularly didn't seem like he was ready for it, but I used video text and they have a pre-algebra module. The first one is pre-algebra, and I shouldn't have worried about it because it was the review of everything that he needed to get through and ready for algebra. So I wouldn't think that you would need all 3 years, but you can take it since you have it. That extra year is nice. Anybody else? Hi, Rebecca.
I have exactly the family makeup you have. I have 4 boys and 1 girl.
So you knew what I was talking about.
Yes, exactly. So they're at PE right now. So that's why I have a little chance to talk. But
Nice.
I have the opposite situation. My eldest is 10 and he's in level C. So he went to a private kindergarten, and then first grade, he was homeschooling with me, but I was still in graduate school. So some weeks I did not have time to teach him. I had to grade. So that's why he is behind 2 levels where my husband and I think he should be. And my 8-year-old is in B and my 6-year-old is in A. So they're all A, B, and C right now. And my 8-year-old and 10-year-old are competitive. So it's not always easy to have them do the games together. But that's what I want to know. Like, I haven't been seeming to be able, I've had 2 babies too. So it was like when he was in 1st grade, I had my daughter, and then I had my son this summer. So it just seems like I always have another baby, and I can't ever accelerate us to get into a new level before the end of the year. And we do, like my son, before he left for PE, it took him 67 minutes to do a lesson with me. And then he had a review in level C on money. And it just seems like he has a little bit, he says he's visual. So the mental math questions, like 77 plus $44, he said 111. And so I went back and told him again, like, let's do the 10s first and then the 1s, like the 70 plus 40, then the 4 plus 7 to show. I said, maybe you could try that again after lunch, or, when you get back, we'll do the second test, see if that method helps you. Sorry, I'm in a rocking chair, so that's why.
No, that's fine.
Bouncing.
Not a problem.
So I just don't know how to get him up through D and E, because he told me on the way there he doesn't like math. And I said, why don't you like math? Because I've been doing RightStart with him since 1st grade, and he's technically 4th grade now. And he said his dad is an engineer. Okay. So he has a big math and science background, and he is doing Beast Academy with him in the books and on the computer. And he's telling him he has to do so much every day. And I think it's the volume of math that is, I told my husband, I think it's too much for him. And he says, he thinks we need to light a fire under him because he is behind, but it's not of my own child's doing. It's definitely me with the babies and being in grad school. So, and I completely started over. You know, I just went with level A because I wanted to make sure he had that solid foundation. So just want your input on how to get him to D and E.
Yeah. So I think that, I mean, Beast Academy, combining that with RightStart is a lot of overkill. I think it's overwhelming. There's a lot of work.
Yeah.
So that's doing two curriculums at the same time, basically. Yeah. There's a couple of things. So he took 60 some odd minutes to do his lesson today. What was the hang up, do you think?
Well, so I try to make him do 2 because he is the oldest. So I try to accelerate him.
Uh-huh.
My 8-year-old as well. I try to do 2 lessons. So he will be, I'm hoping they can be starting a new level soon because they're both in over a lesson. They're both 75% done with their current lessons.
Uh-huh.
You know?
So time-wise, as far as when he's going to get to algebra, I would relax and not worry about it because I think that even at the pace he's going, he'll still be able to hit algebra in 8th grade, most likely. So that part wouldn't scare me at all. I do question whether or not, like, if he's feeling super confident with his math facts and could skip things like the drawing lessons, because those do come up every year after C. So C, D, E, and F. And then the middle school one, if he gets to that, will definitely be drawing lessons. Has he had any experience with the drawing lessons yet?
Yes, he's been using them and he likes
Does he like them?
He's my best artist. So he does get better, you know, but I guess sometimes, you know, like I wouldn't have to do all of them per se, right? I could pick and choose, like, you know, because it would show you different patterns that it made with the triangles and stuff like that.
Right. So you could go through it faster that way. I think, so my husband's a physicist, so I understand the pressure.
Yeah.
I figured my homeschooling gig would be up if I didn't get math right. That was for sure. So I definitely understand the pressure on him and you in a sense. I don't think that it serves him well to pile more stuff up on top of him.
Yeah.
I would, you know, see if it's really the case. I mean, if 2 lessons are easy for him, that's fine. I did double up on lessons as well with my kids. I would just turn the page. If things were going well, I would just turn the page and keep going. I would skip the warm-ups on the next one because they just did it. So why not bother? I would definitely make sure that he's solid on his facts and then just, you know, there is the possibility, like, I understand your husband wanting to light a fire under him. If he thinks that he needs to be going faster, you could do the tutoring books. So that would give you, I wouldn't do number sense. He would be fine with that. Maybe multiplication and division, and the fractions book just to get him faster. And then he could start in with, you know, level E or level F, depending. But my gut feel is that it might just be that he's feeling too much pressure, right?
Yeah.
To perform for dad, to be the good math person. That's a lot. That can cause math anxiety, just that whole experience. So I don't know. My suggestion would be to just go at his pace. It's okay to challenge him to do more, but not like dump a whole nother curriculum on top of him, you know?
Right.
And maybe if dad wants to do a little extra stuff on the sides that are fun, like fun math activities that encourage him and challenge him, but don't stress him out, I would encourage that. But yeah, having another curriculum on top of it seems like overkill. So, and if he's almost to D, I don't know. I think that, you know, you can with him skip some of those things or do less of the things that he already knows.
Okay.
Maybe he already knows how to tell time and
Right.
do money.
Yes.
Those things could be moved along a little bit faster, not
Okay.
spending as much time on it, not spending as much time on the geometry portion. But really, I think a lot of it has to do just with, gosh, Dad's really good at math and I need to be too. And that can just, weigh you down.
Definitely.
So
Thank you so much.
sure. Thanks, Rebecca. Anyone else?
Teresa, we have a question, and then let's tie it up here and just being respectful of everyone's time here. But
Okay.
we have a quick question on, do we have any videos on how to play the games in the book?
Oh, yes. Yes. Okay.
And I'll
So
put the link in the chat.
thank you. Yes, we do have videos on how to play the games. We do have some that are on our blog. So you could check out the website first and look to see if the game that you want to know how to play is on the blog. But all of the games for all of the levels are available on Vimeo. So it is a subscription and you will get access to the games that you need for that particular level. And they're done really well. So I think that most people have very, very much enjoyed watching those instructional videos. It is just a month-to-month subscription, so you probably wouldn't need it for the whole school year. You can just binge watch, a bunch of videos on how to play and then pick it up again when you need it again. But yeah, those are super fun.
And a quick note, this isn't quite common knowledge yet, but I'm going to go out on a limb. We are in the process of creating a kind of a discount, if you want to call it that. It's going to cost a little more, but it's a discount so that for those of you that have a pile of children, we can, we think the pricing is going to be $8.99 a month, and then you'll be able to get all the games for all your kids, instead of having to do $4.99 for this kid, and $4.99 for this kid, and $4.99 for that kid.
Yeah.
So it is coming. It's still in progress. So kind of keep an eye on it. We don't have it available yet, but we are working on it because we know that's a concern.
Yep. Super. All right. Is that it? Any more questions in the chat, Kathleen?
No, I'm just looking here and someone said, is that all the games? Yes, it is. Well, it's all the games that's in the curriculum. There are some games in the Math Card Games book that are not on the Vimeo on-demand platform because they're not used in the curriculum. But kind of once you get a hang of them, you'll have it. And someone said, how can I be notified of that bundle price coming? We'll put some sort of announcement out. We'll send it out on an email blast. So if you're on our normal email, you'll get it. And we have no other questions, Teresa.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. Thanks everybody for joining me. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.